You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Cyberspace, the new frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast First Contact. Its mission? To explore every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. To seek out new viewers and have new conversations. To boldly view what many have viewed before. Welcome to First Contact, the Star Trek The Next Generation intro cast, where two veteran fans of TNG guide a newcomer through the adventures of the Enterprise D. And what adventures they are. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex. To know me is to love me. And to love me is to know me.
No, that's really not the case. This week we are discussing The Schizoid Man. It first aired the week of January 23rd, 1989. It was written by Tracy Tormey, Richard Manning and Hans Beimler, and directed by Les Landau. James, tell me stuff.
Like all scientists, Ira Graves lives alone on a planet with a beautiful woman. This is the best way to do science. Unfortunately, it's a bitch when you get sick. Answering the distress call, an away team arrives to find Graves close to death. When meeting Data, the scientist visibly twiddles his mustache and then dies suddenly. Back on the Enterprise, Data is acting all emotional and strange. The crew thinks it must be grief, because those 10 minutes with Graves were clearly special to him. It turns out Graves stole his body, and Picard must convince him to give it back.
I think that the writers sit around all the time and say, hey, we really like Brent Spiner, he's a great performer, he's got lots of range. How can we use that? Because he's playing an android who doesn't do very much. And so they come up with various contrived plots to try and get him to be all theatrical. So you've had the evil twin, you've had him playing on the holodeck, and now you have this. Not that I want to cloud your judgment in any way, but Alex, what do you think of this one?
Well, I didn't hate it.
That's where the bar is set.
Watching it, I actually thought it was solid enough. You know, it doesn't have anything offensive in it. Oh, actually, we'll come back to that. It's fairly mediocre, I would say. I think Tracy Tormey is one of the show's better writers at this point. But competent is how I would put it, but not without problems.
Yeah, no, that seems an utterly fair assessment to me.
Well, I love this episode. I think it's the best episode the show has ever made for one reason, and one reason only. And that's because they take the most useless character in the show's history. They take Pulaski, and they start the episode with her, and then she's not in the episodes ever again from that point. They bring in a new doctor, Lieutenant Solar, for no reason, just to point out how useless Pulaski is.
I was hoping for Peter Capaldi.
Why do that? You do have this new character, and they create a crisis, which we never get to see, that needs to involve her. So we have to get a guest cast member to play the part of the Doctor. Seems quite a strange decision to me. Was she busy working on something else that week? I mean, I can't imagine she had many offers, but if that's the case, why is she in it at all? She does the opening narration. She does her medical officer's log. So you'd think she'd be important in the episode, but no. Okay then, fine.
She had diarrhea?
I don't want to think about that. There are some striking similarities here. Do you remember We'll Always Have Paris? I certainly do. It featured a scientist doing experiments on a planet alone with only the company of a beautiful woman. It seems an odd setup, and it seems strange that it's occurring once again. What kind of science are they doing that they need to be isolated completely alone on a planet? In fact, several times Picard refers to this one as Graves' planet. So, it's like his planet. He's bought it. He's put an extension on and everything. Why? Why could it not be a habited planet? I don't really understand.
Am I right in remembering that his young assistant there is the daughter of his original assistant?
I believe that was the case. His assistant or colleague, there was somebody else, and they're now dead, leaving the daughter behind.
That's okay, I suppose. I mean, they must have known each other for quite some time, and it wouldn't all have been work. They must have been having fun outside. Perhaps they had a pet and they engaged in the in the hobby of grooming. I mean, dog grooming.
Yeah, let's talk about the character of Ira Graves.
Do we have to?
I think we do have to. Ira Graves, and let's come up with some of the things he said in this episode. Women aren't people, they're women. Which, incidentally, is what it says on the wall of Maurice Hurley's office. Why are we introducing a character like this in our somewhat utopian future? It seems incredibly creepy and out of whack. I mean, real chauvinism. And we have this chauvinistic character who has raised this teenage girl that he has feelings for. This isn't an uncomfortable situation at all, is it?
I think I can answer your question, bizarrely. And I think it's because, as I discovered subsequently, that role was originally meant to be played by Patrick McGoohan. And when I understood that, everything made sense. Because they seem to have clearly written it for Patrick McGoohan. If they haven't, I'm very surprised, because every line that character delivers and every line that Data delivers after he's been taken over by Graves just comes across as Patrick McGoohan.
Are you saying that Patrick McGoohan is a sex pest?
I'm saying that he was a very unusual man, and his and his opinions on gender were perhaps not that PC.
Instead, we got a performance from W. Morgan Shepherd. Fine, I suppose. I did believe he was an unpleasant and perhaps even intelligent man. I think if you're having an episode like this, you have to give this character some very definitive traits so that the audience know exactly how he is. And then when another actor is playing the same character, you can really identify it. But I don't think I really got that from Brent Spiner's performance. I thought he wasn't that different from when he was playing Lore. He was just a bit more emotive. But I didn't get the sense he was doing a great version of this other actor. It was still pretty much what we've seen before.
In both performances, I think... I really think the episode relied on that role being taken by McGoohan. McGoohan was an odd actor. I mean, I realise of the three of us, I'm the only one who's seen The Prisoner. And it's strange. He had this sort of quality where he could be delivering those sort of lines, whether as a character or just as himself in an interview. And yet he had this bizarre sort of charm to him, even when he was being thoroughly unpleasant. And I think you would have seen that role quite differently if he'd played that part. And I think the repercussions of that would have played out on how we view Data being inhabited by that character.
Well, sadly not, and we have what we have. It does seem quite strange that obviously they've gone down and he's been diagnosed with very sudden death disease, and then does die one of these TV deaths. As soon as you know that they're ill, then suddenly, they're dying. Obviously, there are different elements involved in this because in some ways I guess it is a suicide, which doesn't get addressed too much.
Well, I mean, we never actually see him die. So is it that transferring his consciousness into Data also kills the body, or does Data hold a pillow over his face?
That's the question that remains unanswered. Presumably he kills himself in some way. Like, literally, I've transferred my consciousness, and I don't think it would be a transfer, per se. It would be a copy. If you're downloading your brain, you're not actually getting rid of it. We see later he's unable to control his strength, but that seems to be a surprise. So, we never know, and nobody really questions it. Nobody bothers to do any kind of autopsy, as far as I can tell, but they have a nice funeral. He doesn't say anything nice about the crew he just met on the holodeck, so we can presume he didn't have time to do that. Funeral in the transporter room. Yeah.
The real unanswered question about this whole episode is, why was Wesley at Ira Graves' funeral?
Appearance fee?
Yeah, if you're paying him to be a series regular, and if you've got Will Wheaton, you're paying him a lot, then you might as well use him for something.
I don't put this down to Will Wheaton. I put it down to either the script or my total lack of interest at one point, meaning I was tuning out of what was going on. But when Wesley is questioning Data, or as he is Graves, about that speech, is it that he thinks it was hilariously bad, or he actually thinks that some of those lines were good? Because I thought it was the latter.
It comes across as he thinks it's hilariously bad.
Yeah, I thought he was genuinely complimenting Data. I don't know.
Did these idiots learn nothing from Data Law?
Nope.
Did they learn It's the exact same thing happening. Data is acting a bit weird, almost out of character, and they all just laugh along with it.
The whole thing, again, with these bad guys, and Lore was the same, is you can get away with being Data by just being cool for a couple of days, ride it out for a week or so, but no, you have to play the big evil card really early on, so everyone is incredibly suspicious of you. Obviously, that wouldn't make for an episode where everyone could work everything out really easily. But it just seems like, okay, you've got this new body, you've got immortality. Play the long game, be a bit patient with it, actually give people something to work out. Because we as the audience know, because he says, an android brain, I was going to download this into my computer. And then he sort of goes, I've got an android here. And then Data walks out and is immediately acting weird. Could you not have a little bit of ambiguity about it?
I think they tried to justify it in the writing by saying that, well, two things. One, he's losing control, but that's here or there. We'll come to that. And the other one being him thinking Picard is trying it on with his assistant. Did you ever get that sense? I mean, I get that it's not actually happening and he's just losing it. But was there anything to even suggest to a crazed man?
I love that scene, though, where he's berating Picard, because when Graves says that Kareen doesn't care for men with limited intellect, it zooms into Riker.
It's not his intellect they go for.
Wouldn't that have made sense? That this girl who's been left alone on a planet for her entire life, as far as I can tell, the only company she's had is this really creepy chauvinistic old man. If she was actually finally in a place with people, might she not flirt? Might she not seek out the company of other people? could she not have done something that might actually justify some jealousy?
For a minute there, I thought you were going to say she spent so long trapped with this creepy old man, so naturally she'll be attracted to Picard. Yeah, no, I agree. That would make sense. I mean, it's similar to some things we've had before to a degree, but yeah, that would seem like a better means of sparking off the jealousy. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Corinne is the character's name we've not mentioned up to now.
She had a character?
Yeah, well, do you even know how old she's meant to be? I didn't really get the sense. I don't know. She's portrayed as quite young and naive in some ways. I don't know. Was she 19? Was she 30? I have no idea.
I hope to God she was over 16.
I personally have often complained about lackluster or unnecessary B-plots to give the cast and crew something to do. Could really have done with a B-plot in this episode, couldn't we?
Yeah. I mean, there was a point when I thought that the B-plot would probably be Data's new beard. and I really thought, God, this is as bad as it can possibly sink. But yeah, you're right. No B-plot. It's very odd.
Did you just think he'd have different types of facial hair throughout the episode? Like in every scene, like he'd have a little toothbrush mustache in one scene. He'd have like one of those evil mustaches that villains always have.
I thought maybe sort of a trait of each of the crew. So the beard for Riker, a bald head for Picard, a hairband for Geordie, and a pair of breasts for Councillor Troy, because in some writers' minds, that seems to be her only defining trait.
And a nice jumper for Wesley.
I think it's always a good time to turn to the great wise words of Maurice Hurley, a man we all admire.
These are the words of Maurice Hurley.
That was science fiction bullshit that didn't work for me. Basically, for one reason. We talk about Gene saying he didn't want to be deceitful with Moriarty. My problem with Schizoid Man is that once you take Data out of character and allow him to be somebody else, we really hurt the character. He was injured in that episode. To see him playing somebody else really damaged the character. To me, you can do that with a lot of characters, but Data is ingenuous, and this took some of the shine off it for me. It's the little 14-year-old girl, and all of a sudden she's giving some guy a French kiss. Something's just a little bit off. There's that incredible innocence of Data that gets damaged. Now, the character of Data, who was programmed with multiple sex techniques which were revealed in his second appearance. Oh, sweet, innocent Data. Do you think it damages him to have him taken over by another character, or do you think Maurice Hurley doesn't understand anything at all?
Why does Maurice Hurley suddenly bring up a 14-year-old girl French kissing a guy?
That's an excellent question. I suppose that's kind of his go-to metaphor.
Bizarrely, there's no elaboration on that in the Gospel of Maurice Hurley.
So, yeah, he thinks that this is a bad episode. I thought last week's was well, he wasn't pleased with it, but I think he thought it was fine.
So it is written. So it shall be told.
Since Maurice has raised the point, and of course we always listen to his words, let us bless Maurice and always listen to him.
Hallelujah.
Keep him in our hearts and shun Gates McFadden.
Amen.
Well, let's talk about the character of Data then, because over the last few weeks we've had Elementary Dear Data, where clearly it's a vehicle for that character. We had that bizarre section in The Outrageous Kona where he was trying to become a comedian. So it seems like every episode they really want to give Brent Spiner a lot to do. Do you think that's good for the show?
He's the most popular character, and they just thought, oh, well, he's popular, let's just do loads of episodes with him.
Do you think the overuse of Data is at the cost of other characters? I mean, what do we know really about Geordi or Troy in comparison? We've already had at least 2 Data backstory episodes. Is it too much, or do you think if you've got a breakout character, you might as well use them?
I think a bit of both to some degree. On one hand, there's no denying a lot of the time the Data stuff can be more enjoyable than, say, an episode centered around Troy, because they generally aren't very good. But equally, I'd quite like to have an episode featured around Picard and learning more about Picard again. It's been a long time, and my God, the last one wasn't very good. Yeah, some more of the crew would be nice. It just depends on what it is. If it's the child, I don't want to see it.
So let's talk about the finale. Isn't it good we're using that engineering set? It's been a long time since a Klingon fell through a panel of glass there, but we go up and Data's knocked everybody out, or Graves has knocked everybody out.
I wouldn't come up here, Captain. You might not like what you see. What, Geordi unconscious? No, I am more than happy.
I don't think they played up the fact that he is losing control really enough.
I agree. And I think when Picard starts talking about how many more little accidents, all of those accidents really could be placed down to Graves doesn't really know his own strength because he's in an android body which isn't human, and obviously it would be stronger. If you wanted to explain it away that way, you could. I don't really see him going full-on demented. As it would be if he, say, killed someone out of spite.
Yeah, in many ways this episode is the basis for the new Johnny Depp film Transcendence. So the original ending was with Data, Graves, holding up the crew on the bridge with a phaser and strangling Picard. Can you believe that? That's to show he was going too far. Do you think that would have been a better ending?
Yeah, that actually shows him going too far. That's what it needed to be. Not just, oh, you've knocked out Geordi. We didn't see how you managed to do it. It could have been you just shoved him out the way a bit too hard and he hit the wall, which is not beyond the realms of possibility by any stretch of the imagination in this series. There's nothing to suggest that he's actually going fully off the crazy end. He's a bit of an egomaniac, and he is very jealous of Picard when he thinks that Picard's coming onto his assistant. But all of those things are not really that dissimilar to the character as he was portrayed before he enters into Data's body.
But then do they really need motivation to want Graves to leave Data's body? I mean, they go through it that Data is a person in and of himself, so you can't just steal his body. It's just like if he entered Riker's body.
It's normally the other way around with Riker.
So, overall thoughts, I think mediocre, middling, fine generally, but I can't help but feel that they're wasting my time.
To be fair to the episode, I didn't go for a walk after I'd finished watching it.
So let's move on to all those extra things we might want to say in Quickfire.
Quickfire.
Lecherous old man takes over Data's body and pervs at women. Is this perhaps wish fulfillment from some of the writers?
When I stroke the beard thusly, do I not appear more intellectual? Well, perhaps, Data, but Councillor Troy doesn't appreciate you stroking her in that way in front of me. Call me Grandpa. Seems more touching in my final hours. Any old man that turns to a stranger and says, "Call me Grandpa," that is a creepy sex pest.
Lieutenant Sealar, who we're apparently not allowed to call Doctor like we do with other doctors, is played by Susie Plaxton, who will go on to play quite an important part in TNG as another character, and will also make appearances in Voyager as a Q, and in Enterprise as an Andorian. You might be familiar with her as Marshall's mum from How I Met Your Mother, but then again you might not be.
Tasha Yar had more material this episode than she did the whole of season 1. She was in a picture.
Shouldn't Counselor Troy have sensed that it wasn't Data a lot sooner? Her powers are incredibly vague, aren't they? But we get another reference to the Wizard of Oz. As you remember, in Skin of Evil, Data was called Tin Man, and here Graves whistles "If I Only Had a Heart." So Wizard of Oz is still big in the future,
even though TV isn't.
TV and movies are dead as an art form, but everyone still knows the Wizard of Oz. I mean, it's magical. Well, I don't know about you, but I feel I've had the life sucked out of me and put into someone else's body, and not in a good way. Next time, we're going to be talking about unnatural selection. So we all look forward to that. I know I do. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
But even better, there was a scene removed from the script where Data was to have a bald head. That would have been the best scene in all of Star Trek. Data walks on the bridge with a bald head, and Picard just says, "Nice haircut." I don't know. It would have been brilliant. Why didn't they do that?
Out of the two, I think I'd have preferred the head to the beard. A sentence that I've said more than once today.